see how you look on. You gotta look here.
I think you gotta look here.
Oh, God.
You can ask Bobby for some makeup.
Let me
But
see.
I think it's good.
Oh, you look very handsome.
You know, why does Bobby say that? She compares me with all the other old men around her. She says, my God, look what happened to them.
Do you see what's out there, huh? When you look at all of the other guys?
You never see what your own hiker is. You know what that means?
Your own hooker?
Yeah, what's a hiker?
A hooker? A hunter? A hooker is a hunter?
A bump in your back.
Could you put this together, please? And, I tell you.
All right. Well, these lights are gonna get hot, so we wanna, I think, do this quickly but effectively. What am I sitting on?
Thank you very much. You're welcome. We're doing an intro, or we're just going to go into this?
I think an intro of sorts would be.
Yes.
Will you tell us who you are and where we are in time and why we're doing this, in your best opinion?
Why am I doing it? I don't know. At this stage of my life, my years in the future is certainly not going to be as many as it was in the past, I think, unless the Messiah comes down, which I have my doubts about.
So,
Born in New York City, 1/12/12, which they always ask me. And that old gag, they always say, if I knew I'd live so long, I would have taken a little better care of myself. But I don't know, it never occurred to me, even at my 90th birthday, to consider that my time is limited. But in this last year, I've been making a lot of thoughtful plans, so I should not leave any loose ends hanging around. I've lived almost 100 years, and when I think back of the times we lived through, for instance, the First World War, I remember the soldiers coming back in 1917. I was a kid, only marching down on Houston Street. My father was never drafted because he had 2 boys already. And I remember going with my father to the draft board, and they say, who's this man? They asked me. I said, what are you talking about? It's my father. Of course, I answered him in Yiddish because I couldn't speak English very well at 4, 5. I could only learn how to speak English when I went to school. My mother got rid of me because she had 2 others. She put me in kindergarten at 4 1/2. And we lived in a mostly Jewish neighborhood. I went to public school. I never went to parochial school like some of my friends did. As a matter of fact, I don't think I ever was religious. Like I told my niece Bevy just before, about an hour ago. At my 13th birthday, I told my parents, I don't want to go to religious school anymore. I have had enough of religious school. I was very, very good in school. I was a good student. I got out of high school at a young age, at all of 16 and a half. Most of my friends, I think, were Jewish. I had no Gentile friends. I was in NYU at 16 and a half. From there, I really wanted to, I didn't know what I wanted to do at school, but I decided I hated to teach. I was a good math student. I think if there wasn't anti-Semitism, I probably would have wanted to study electrical engineering. But on the other hand, when it came out, my nephew Alan, he studied engineering, but it was 20 years later, so there's a great deal of difference. I didn't want to be an accountant. Medicine was too long. The best field, I certainly didn't want to have a lawyer. At that time, 5 lawyers would have one assistant, one secretary. I thought to myself, that's disgusting and horrible. I figured dentistry was probably, I was able to get into dental school. I had rather good grades at school, and we had no problem. Most of my fellow friends in the later years were all dentists. My circle of friends was very narrow. I'm basically a very introverted person, I think. Others say I've become very verbal at times. I had very few friends. I got out of dental school very young. I was all of 23, I think.
Were you excited about it? Did you like dentistry? Did it excite you?
I don't think I liked dentistry. I had a very difficult time in dental school. I think I was rather immature. I certainly was immature socially. I had very few friends. I made a lot of friends in dental school, and those were my friends throughout my whole life.
What were your brothers doing while you were in dental school? Your brothers, you had four
My brother,
brothers.
when I was in dental school, my brother Julie was going to City College. Dave was 4 years younger than myself. Dave said I'm quitting high school. As a matter of fact, my brother Dave wanted to quit school in the first year in high school. But my mother said, if you don't go to school, you're on your own. I'll kick you out. And so he finished high school. Dave was very good. He went back to school. Once he got a job, he went to school in Connecticut. He was very dynamic, Dave. My brother Julie, on the other hand, was a nice guy, very good, very handsome. I think, in a way, I was jealous of my brother Julie because he had a million friends. He always had friends coming around the house. I had very few friends, to be truthful. I think it was probably my nature to be and I've had very few friends throughout my life, I think. When I met Frida, I was in the Army, and we became, she listened to all my stupid stories, and she was attractive, and I got married during the war years, and Leslie was born. I was very successful. Well, before I got into the Army, I was very successful as a dentist. I'm talking about monetarily. And I was very good at what I did because I always knew that I didn't know very much when I got out of dental school, but I always took postgraduate courses. And like one of my friends used to say, why are you taking postgraduate courses? He says, I'm not utilizing the knowledge I have now. Why do I have to take more knowledge? But I always felt that I always took postgraduate courses.
Albert, talk more about your family.
Leslie was born the first year
About your brothers.
about my brothers.
You mentioned that Dave,
My
while
youngest-
you were in school, you talked about Dave, you talked about Julie. Wasn't there another brother?
Yeah, my youngest brother, my brother Manny, who was, to be truthful, I was the fondest of my brother Mandy. Mandy, he was 6 years younger than myself.
So were you the oldest?
I was the oldest of 5 boys. My brother Manny was the brightest of all of our 5 brothers. He was in my opinion, and I was in dental school already, he was absolutely the brightest one of all 5 of us. He was different looking, he was blonde, but our relationship was fabulous. And when he got sick, he developed rheumatic fever in his first year at City College. Once he got rheumatic fever, it was one relapse after another, after another, after another, and he died after 1 year. He was finished at 6 months at City College, and he passed. It was very devastating to me. I was then in my senior year in dental school,
Talk
and it
about
was.
your other brothers.
No. My youngest brother, he was a terrific,
What was his name? Was it?
we called him, his name was Irving, but we called him Job. I don't know why he got that name. Wasn't a very good student, barely got out of high school, although he was admitted to City College at night. He said he really didn't want to go to school. And then before you looked around, the war came along, and he was drafted as well as I was. I went into the Army before him. It was drafted. I would think I was stationed in Fort Hamilton, Brooklyn, and he was drafted a year after I got in the Army. I went to visit him in Atlantic City, where he did basic training when I got a weekend off, and we spent a very pleasant time together. We both got out of the Army
Tell
about the
time
same
you
time.
visited, Beverly's father in the Army.
When I was in the Army, my brother Julie was working at that time, I think, in the post office. I used to hassle him all the time. I'd say, Julie, why don't you show a little ambition? You're bright. I said, you're far smarter than I am. And he was, truthfully. I would read a book. It would take me 4 days, four sessions to read the same book to know what I was reading. Julie would pick up a book and finish it in 2 hours and quote verbatim everything. So it used to annoy me that he worked in the post office, did all his mental equipment,